I am so excited because today I'm speaking to a remarkable woman who overcame an eating disorder to become literally the poster child for healthy plant-based living in Australia. Tyra Eberwein has a degree in sports science and nutrition and works as a nutritionist and wellness therapist at Body Catalyst in Brisbane, Australia. She's an Instagram sensation and she is here today with me. Welcome, Tyra, to the Fabulous Health Show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. It's so good to see you again. So let's start from the beginning. I knew you in high school, and as soon as I met you, I thought you were a rock star. Actually, like literally, you were a rock star because you could sing, you were in a band, you had this two-toned hair and a shave under, and you were one of the most popular girls in school. But I'm guessing that you actually didn't see yourself that way because there was something else going on that I had no idea about. And so do you want to tell us about your eating disorder and how that came to be and how you kept it under wraps?
Well, I always had issues growing up, I think, with mental illness, depression, anxiety, and I think it just manifested to an eating disorder, especially in my last 2 years of high school. I think it was just a lot of pressure, and I always had a perfectionist mindset. And I mean, eating disorders are a lot about control. So I felt like I didn't have a lot of control in my life, and I wanted to be as small and skinny as possible. So I started starving myself. I was over-exercising. I was obsessed with food and not eating it. And I was just, I think I was just really sad all the time. I think it came from a lot of changes in my life, going into IB, having my best friends leave, a lot of friendship dynamics were changing, a lot of relationship dynamics were changing, and I just felt a lot of pressure, and so I wanted to focus on something that I could do right, and that felt like my body. And I always felt like I was never skinny enough, I was never toned enough, I was never small enough, so I just kept starving. At first, actually, it was just to be healthy, and that's why I actually approached you in school. And so coming from an Asian mom, being raised by an Asian mom, I always wanted to do a lot of sports. Okay, I wanted to do basketball, I wanted to do soccer or football, I wanted to do ice hockey, I wanted to do all the types of movement and sports growing up. My mom never let me. I still very vividly remember when I was like 10 years old or something, my mom telling me that if I did soccer, I would get fat thighs because I'd be running a lot. Yeah. And I still have that memory.
Did you tell her that now? Is she regretting that statement?
Yeah. Oh, she regrets everything so much. She regrets never letting me do sport as a child. So I never did any movement. So I ended up getting quite chubby thighs because I never moved. Like it was the complete opposite, right? Like,
can I just interrupt you here for a minute?
Yeah.
From an outsider's point of view, when I met you, you were never chubby, never. So this is, again, we're talking about a little bit of body dysmorphia here as well, aren't we? And that's a really big thing when you have an eating disorder. You think that you are bigger than you are. Continue.
For sure. No, and it's true. Even to this day, I'm fully recovered and I still have days where I think I'm fat. But I know I'm not. I feel fat. I think I'm fat, but I know I'm not. Like I look in the mirror and I'm like, it depends on the day, depends what I've eaten, depends on hormones, a lot of different things. It's all up here. That's the thing. Like a lot of people think eating disorders are a physical thing. It's like, why don't you just eat food? Like it's not as simple as that. It's all in the mind. And it's this constant fight with yourself. But yeah, so growing up, I never did any sports or anything like that. And then when the gym opened at school, I was really excited because I could finally do something. And weightlifting specifically made me feel really strong and it made me feel really empowered and building all this muscle and finding something that I was good at, right? Especially because I hated cardio. And and I've always been really bad at running and whatnot. But I found a love in strength training. And I still do it to this day, every day. After this podcast, I'm going to the gym.
I've got to just interrupt you again just a little bit, just so that I can tell the viewers and the listeners where you are in this. So Tyra, and the listeners don't actually know this about me. So I was actually in your trainer basically. So you came to, I worked in an international baccalaureate school, and you were a student, and you came to me so that you could learn how to strength train. And I will tell you that you were a model student. So you're saying now that you wanted to be in control. Anything I told you, you did. And from my point of view, I just thought you were just a really good listener and a really good student, and that I thought you were like the golden child. But in fact, something was happening that I had no idea about. And I regret that I didn't pick up on that. So talk to us a little bit about how you managed to hide your disorder from people, such as me, who saw you every single, like I saw you 5 days a week.
It's just the little things. I think and the thing is, at first it was all about health, and it was all about wellness, and it was never disordered at the start. And I'm an all or nothing person, so that's why I'm vegan, that's why I go to the gym every day, and that's why I do certain things. At first it was, I just want to lose maybe 2 kilos, and I want to feel better, and I want to gain strength. But then I started like, oh, I'll eliminate this from my diet, and then I'll eliminate this from my diet. And then it just started going more. And it happens very gradually until the point where you've dug yourself so deep that you can't get out. And what I did was, and this is what happens when you have an eating disorder, you completely isolate yourself. So by the time I finished high school, I had literally one friend, and I think you know who it was. It was Rahel. It was my friend Rahel. She was like my only friend. I didn't have any friends. Anytime people invited me out for social events, I would be like, nah, they're going for pizza, they're going for this, they're going for that. I'm not going to go because I don't want to eat. I would lie to everyone. I lied to everyone. And it was terrible. And I knew that I was lying. So I told people I was stressed. I was stressed, but I would eat by myself. I wouldn't eat anything. I would just eat a piece of fruit for lunch, maybe. I would go home and then tell my family that I'd eaten out with my friends. So then I wouldn't eat dinner at home, or I would eat something very small, or it would just be like, I would just lie to eat to everyone. So, and I'm pretty good.
So you were very good at that, actually. I'll tell you, because you were such a nice person, everybody believed what you said. And at what point did you realize that you actually had an eating disorder and that you wanted to turn it around?
There was a very specific moment, and I still remember the day very vividly. So I was home alone, and I was like, great, this is great. I can just starve myself. I don't have to eat, because when people are around me, I don't need to do anything. No one's going to ask. No one's going to be concerned. So I still remember what I ate that day. I ate 2 eggs in the morning, and I ate grapes for lunch, grapes for dinner. And around 7 o'clock, I felt like something was wrong. And at this point, I was really, really skinny. And I felt like, at the time, I still thought I was really fat. And I felt something was wrong. My chest was really, really tight. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I had no energy. And then I was like, okay, I'm just going to go to sleep. And when I went to sleep, I felt really, really cold. Like I felt starting to get numb, and my heart really hurt. And I don't know if it was a heart problem. To this day, I still think, I think my heart was like failing on me. And I was just like, I couldn't breathe. And every time I was just about to fall asleep, my body had shaken me, like shook me awake. As if my body knew that if I fell asleep, I wasn't going to wake up. That's how I felt. And a lot of people, I've told this to people, and they're like, maybe you're just having an anxiety attack. And I'm like, no, it was starting to get to midnight, and I still hadn't fallen asleep. So I texted my helper. I was like, can you please come home? I feel really sick. I feel like I'm dying. I need someone here with me. I texted my brother in Macau, and he was like, just please eat something. And to my head, I was like, no, I can't eat anything.
Yeah, and that's not going to happen, is it?
No.
Yeah.
I have a problem, and I need to do something. And I realized at that moment that I didn't want to die, because I grew up my whole life. I've had suicidal tendencies, and I've wanted to die before. And at that moment, I realized, nah, I don't want to die. But I want to live a different life. And I was like, okay, that kind of mindset switch. So I got out of my bed. There was a loaf of bread on the table, and I hadn't eaten bread for months at this point, and I was terrified. But I just shoved that bread in my mouth, and I felt terrible. But I was also like, okay, I need this. So I ate it. I went to bed. My helper came home and she stayed in bed with me until 3 a.m. until I fell asleep. And the next morning I woke up. I took some photos of myself in the mirror. I weighed myself, and then I was like, I'm never going to be this weight again, and I'm never going to look this way again. And then that morning, my mom texted me, and she said, Tyra, something terrible happened to my flight. And my mom has flown for 33 years as a flight attendant, and nothing ever has happened on her flights. She's always been really blessed. And she texted me that morning. It was the next day. And she said, something terrible has happened on my flight. I need you to pick me up from the airport. And I was like, okay. And when I picked her up, she told me that a passenger on her flight had died of heart problems.
No.
And when that hit me, I was like, how come of all the flights she's ever taken and of all the nights that has ever happened to me, the night that I felt like I was about to die, the next morning, someone had died on my mom's flight. And that to me was a sign from the universe that I needed to change, or else I would end up dead as well.
Wow.
So I was like, fuck. I was like, sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear.
You can say that.
Yeah. But I opened up to all my friends. I opened up to my mom. And then we started seeing doctors and gynecologists, especially because I had lost my period. But I didn't tell anyone that. No one questioned it, because even my helpers were like, oh yeah, I noticed you haven't really been asking me to buy pads or whatever. And I just didn't say anything. I thought it was great because I was like, oh, I don't want a period, that they suck. But then I started researching and realizing that they're really important for all functions of the body. And then that's when I got really interested in nutrition and health. And I was like, okay, what can I do for myself that, because I do truly believe also before I had my eating disorder, I wasn't eating very well. Even growing up, I was like, what was I look back and I'm like, Mom, how are you feeding us? Because a lot of I was eating was really disgusting. And
Let me tell you, parents do their best, Tyra.
I know,
Parents do their best.
That's what she said. That's what she said. But I was like, Mom. Oh, God.
You can say that now because you have a degree in nutrition.
Yeah, I know.
And bear in mind, your mum doesn't have a degree in nutrition, and you're a 16-year-old girl. So, there's a mountain of knowledge in between now and back then. So it's very easy to look on it back in hindsight saying, you were feeding us garbage. And look, I feel sometimes the same way about my kids. When my kids were little, I thought I was feeding them the healthiest diet known to mankind. It was vegetarian, but I was still feeding cheese and eggs and milk and yogurt and red frogs occasionally, which we all know that red frogs are not good for anybody. In fact, I'm just going to interrupt here.
Yeah,
I told my kids once that when I went vegan, I said to them, you realize that's no jelly snakes anymore, because jelly snakes have got gelatin in them. And they're like, what? No jelly snakes? Anyway, luckily you can buy jelly snakes now that do not have gelatin in them. Yeah. So you made the decision yourself. And that is an amazing thing, because you've said that you had previously suffered with some mental health issues. That must have been a very difficult decision for you to make, because I do know that sometimes when people are in this situation, they can't make that decision for themselves. So I'm really proud that you made that decision for yourself. Now, was it about that time that you decided to go vegan, or was this later on or in between? Tell me about that, your transition to a vegan lifestyle. I will say that I'd like to think that I had a little bit of a hand in that, because I was pushing the vegan cart in school a lot to try and get all my kids to eat more. What was my saying? Eat more green things.
Yeah. It was 3 months after I started. So I say March was when I started recovering, or like going into recovery, and I went vegan in June. So it was just 3 months after. First of all, yes, you have to, in terms of recovery, in terms of any type of recovery, has to do with any type of mental illness, even addiction. You have to be the one to make the decision. No one can force you to do it. No one can force you to eat. No one can force you to choose better things for your life. So it was hard, and there were times when I just wanted to go back and didn't want to. Like, there were terrible days, but you just keep pushing on, right? It's never linear, anyways. So yeah, it was 3 months after that I decided to go vegan. Growing up, I always wanted to go vegan eventually. but it was more of I just won't watch the videos, and if I don't see anything, like ignorance is bliss. If I don't see anything, then it doesn't exist. But then I started doing a lot of research in health and nutrition. I started watching a lot of the videos, especially slaughterhouse footage. And it really, when you see those things, you can't unsee them. And
That's
then
why
I was
I've
like,
never seen them on
yeah,
purpose. I'm
yeah.
sorry to say,
Yeah, no, that's
I've
okay.
never seen them and I never want to see them. And in my heart of hearts, I know that I'm helping the animals by not eating them. So I don't actually need to see them.
Yeah. I've seen like Dominion and all of that stuff multiple times, which it's terrible. It's really hard to watch. But each their own. I know a lot of vegans that haven't watched them as well. But what I told myself was I was going to wait until university to go vegan, because that's once I'm an adult and I've left the nest and whatever. But I couldn't. Like, I stopped seeing animal products as food. I started seeing them as violence and death. And I truly believe that when you eat animal products, you eat all of the negative energy that they went through in their lives. And you're also eating a lot of unhealthy things. And I was like, I don't want to put that in my body. This is a time for me to heal. And there was so many plant foods that I hadn't tried. And the thing is, it's a really touchy topic. I don't suggest people to go vegan during their eating disorder recovery, because I really want them to, it's important to try a lot of different foods and try not to restrict in any way. But it's also important to recognize why you're doing something. So for me personally, when I was really bad in my eating disorder, I was not eating any carbohydrates. So the only carbohydrates I was eating was fruits and veg, because they're low calorie, but I wasn't eating any like potatoes or like high calorie fruits like dates. I wasn't eating any rice or bread. And I was pretty much just eating vegetables, fruits, eggs. I wasn't eating dairy because I was high calorie, and I was eating a lot of meat. So to me, my fear foods, because everybody has fear foods in their eating disorder, was pretty much all the plant foods. So I thought actually it was a really good way for me to open up the doors for me. And then I realized that I didn't really actually want to eat meat. And I wasn't not eating meat because I was scared of eating meat, but it was more of like, actually, this is not food and it's not going to nourish me. So I decided overnight to go vegan, and my mom was not very happy. I told my whole family that I was going vegetarian first, because it sounds a bit like less extreme. And my mom used that word. She said it was too extreme. But I told her, I was like, look, this is not about me. This is not a diet. She thought I was dieting. She thought I wanted to lose weight again. I was like, no, this has nothing to do with me losing weight. It's actually the complete opposite. It has nothing to do with me. It has to do with the earth, has to do with animals, and with my health and, the people around me. And I was like, it's either I eat vegan or I don't eat at all. You choose. So I was like, do you want me to restrict again?
The ultimatum.
Yeah, I gave her that, because I was like, look, this is my body and it's my choice. And I understand where she was coming from too, because she was really scared. But I was like, let me prove to you that I will gain weight and I will be healthy again.
Which you did, which is absolutely, I mean, it's just remarkable. You're such a strong woman that you went right down to the bottom of hell, and then you just pulled yourself up with your own conviction. And that is absolutely amazing. Can we talk a little bit, just a itty bit, about animal activism? Just a itty bit, because it really disturbs me. But
what do you mean?
Well, not the activism. The activism doesn't disturb me. The actual slaughterhouse or the animal agriculture disturbs me a lot. And I think you have to be a really special person to be able to look at that and then to be able to put it in front of people. I know that you found the conviction for yourself. How did you decide that you wanted to share that with others?
I don't know. I just felt like everyone needs to see the truth. If you're going to eat animal products, you should be able to see that. And, well, you have to see that and make that decision for yourself. And also ask yourself why you're okay with it. Because majority of people, 99% of people wouldn't be. I've asked people, I'm like, would you kill the animal yourself? And they would be like, no way. I'm like, okay, so why are you paying someone to do it behind closed doors? It's so messed up.
And would you eat your dog? No, you wouldn't. Would you eat your cat? No, you wouldn't. Exactly. Mm.
It's terrible. So I started going to slaughterhouses in Hong Kong. There's a pig slaughterhouse. Yeah,
Serious?
yeah. I went to a pig slaughterhouse. We would go every month. It was near King in Hong Kong. Like you could see it every time you would go on the MTR over Chinyi to King. You could see it through the window, and it looks like a car park, and it's right across the cemetery. So it's very ironic because we would protest outside the slaughterhouse or do vigils, and people would be going to give their prayers to the people that have died, and then
From
and you
eating
could
the
hear
pork.
and you could hear the yeah, and you could hear the pigs screaming. It's terrible. It's so terrible.
Oh.
And I've done vigils here as well. I've done Anonymous for the Voiceless, like the Cube of Truth, where everyone's wearing masks and holding the laptops and showing people the reality. And it's been pretty effective. I mean, there's also some not effective activism, and there can be some really strong things, but each to their own. I think activism can come in a lot of different forms. As well as that's why I do it on my Instagram. I just like to show, that's why I'm called Tyra Abundance. Like I'm just trying to show that people always think veganism is really restrictive, but I'm just trying to show that it's really abundant. And a lot of the foods I'm eating now were things that I didn't eat growing up and I never tried. So before I went vegan, I never had avocado, sweet potato, mangoes, durian. I never had nuts and seeds. I never had things like quinoa, tempeh, all these like different cool grains and fruits and veg. I never had any of them. I had
Wow.
a very boring life, very boring diet. So, yeah.
Well, let's talk about also that word vegan.
Yeah.
So I find that you're right. The word vegan is polarizing to people who are not plant-based. And I find that in my practice, and certainly when I'm talking to omnivores and people that are eating the standard American diet, I tend to talk about a whole foods plant-based diet rather than a vegan diet because it actually hits people in a much softer space. Now, you work as a nutritionist. Do you use the word vegan around people who are omnivorous, or do you use the word plant-based? And does that matter to you?
When I suggest for people to eat certain foods, I'll say plant-based. When people ask me what I eat, I say I'm vegan. But like if when I suggest people to eat certain foods, I'll say, oh, maybe you can look for more plant-based alternatives, whatnot. Because it is softer, it is easier. Good thing about in Australia is that a lot of people are more open to the term vegan now, and there's like vegan options everywhere, which is amazing. And a lot of my clients are vegan or have gone vegan after talking with me. So it's been so good.
That is just
that.
amazing. That is so amazing. I'm so happy to hear that because not only are you saving their health, you're saving the animals as well. So you mentioned the Instagram. You started taking pictures of your food a long time ago, and you have over 21,000 followers, and some of your pictures are just pictures of sweet potatoes.
Yeah. It is, and most of them are.
I'm just like, hang on a minute. How did you get 21,000 followers by taking a picture of a sweet potato? But you're very honest about what you do in your, I read the words as well. Instagram people, just in case you don't know, Instagram is not just pictures. Read the words. Tyra's very open about what she does, and she's very honest about her own life. And I think maybe, is it the words? Is that why people follow you?
I think people relate to me. And to me, my Instagram has always been just for myself. It's just kind of like a diary for me. I just share it with people, and people like to read and follow. So yeah, I think that's
How do
what
you
it was.
do you communicate with your followers?
Oh yeah.
I notice that sometimes you like mention things to them and stuff, but do you have followers that you communicate with in a much greater level?
Oh yeah. So I reply to every single direct message I get. And I have several followers that I message like one-on-one. I mean, over the ones overseas, obviously, but I've met a lot of them in real life as well, and a few of them have become really close friends.
That's fantastic. So you are also, I mentioned at the beginning that you are a poster child for plant-based living. And I mean that literally because there's actual billboards of you in Australia.
That's true. I totally forgot about that.
Talk to me about that. How did you become a model for the plant-based movement?
Well, it was actually funny because the third day I was in Brisbane, back in 2018, like for my university. I was super lonely and I had no friends. So it was my third day in university. But I just like Googling. Like, I was on Facebook and I like Googled like Brisbane vegan activism, and they were doing like some activism, street activism. So I was like, oh yeah, I might as well go. And so it was for Animal Liberation Queensland. And so I joined the volunteer group. And then last year during COVID, they were like, look, we're doing this big campaign, and they directly messaged me. They're like, we know that, you know, you're quite big on Instagram, and we'd like to have you as the face for our new Vegan for Life program. If you'd like to come, and we'd take some pictures at some restaurants, and we also went to a sanctuary to do photos. And then ever since then, I've been on like all these billboards and pamphlets and stuff, which is great.
You're a superstar. I knew you were from the very beginning, from the moment I met you. So you've gone to university and you've got your degree in sports science and nutrition. Did the establishment applaud you for your plant-based stance when you were doing your assignments, or did they berate you if you mentioned eating plants in your assignments, or did you not mention eating plants in your assignments? Because I know the Australian guidelines still say you need dairy, you need meat, you need cheese. How did that go for you? Because I know how it went for me. It was not great.
I was actually really pleasantly surprised by how open-minded my nutrition courses were. Veganism came up a lot, like pretty much every lecture, but it was more like, oh yeah, if you're a vegan, make sure, you know, to get the right iron sources and to have vitamin C with your iron, or like to take a B12 supplement, stuff like that. It wasn't like putting down vegans. It's just like, just have this in mind. But all types of diets came up: paleo, keto, even the carnivore diet, which is crazy. But what's really cool was on my exam, my final nutrition exam, our case study was about a vegan person, like about this guy that had diabetes, and he wants to go vegan. So what should he consider? What should he eat? What's a balanced diet for him? And
fantastic.
I saw that.
Did you get an A plus for that?
Oh yeah, of course. I got full grades on all my nutrition courses. No, so it was very open-minded. There were a lot of plant-based and vegan students as well, so I never felt really alone. There were a lot of it was mostly the male students that were like super into like meat and keto and paleo and carbs and sugar. But there's always going to be those type of people. But my lecturers and whatnot, they were very open to veganism. And there was even a time when in my first year where we had to dissect frogs for my biology stuff. And I actually, a few of my students and I actually sent an email, and there was this whole case study on the ethics department of Queensland, the Queensland University. But we didn't win. But yeah, because their justification was, oh yeah, these toads, they're overpopulated in Queensland, so that's okay. And I'm like, yeah, so are dogs, but we're not going to be, dissecting them, are we? Yeah, it was terrible. But I told them, I was like, look, I will come to the class, but I refuse to dissect the frog. Because even if I'm there or not, they're still going to dissect the frogs. So I just observed. But I said, I'm not physically going to do it. And they were okay with that. And a lot of my nutrition lecturers were really open to veganism. A lot of them, Dr. Michael Greger, he's also your favorite. He came up in she showed a lot of his videos during our nutrition lectures. So
fantastic.
I was like, oh. Yeah.
Well, that sounds fantastic. It sounds like that your university course was a lot more forward-thinking than my university course. I finished my master's in 2018, and I got a C on one of my assignments because it was all about calcium, and I didn't mention dairy once. And I was told that I was, what was it? I was standing on a soapbox, or I had an agenda. And I sent an email to the lecturer and I said, yes, I have an agenda. It's for the health of the nation. And
I love that.
And maybe you could read some of the latest science on plant-based living and how you don't need to have dairy for your calcium needs. Okay, Tyra, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
No worries.
Tell me, what's next for Tyra? Are we going to see you in a movie? You're going to join another band? You're going to be on more billboards? What's going on?
Oh, I'd love to be in a movie one day. It's a bit up in the air with COVID. I hope to be traveling a lot next year, going back to Asia, because I've been stuck in Australia for the past 2 years. But I eventually want to go back and do my master's of dietetics. and maybe work in hospitals, because the food system is terrible as well. I don't know, there a lot of hospitals feed their sick patients food that makes them sick, which really
Yes, they
bothers
do.
me.
Yes, they
So
do.
I want to be working in hospitals in the future. But yeah, I would love to be more in media and whatnot. No, I love that. I love being
Well,
on camera.
I'm sure you will be. I'm sure you will be. So, Tyra, thank you so much for joining me today on the Fabulous Health Show. If you want to follow Tyra on Instagram, she's Tyra Abundance, which is TYRABUNDANCE. Thank you so much, lovely, and I'll see you later.
Thank you. See
Bye.
ya. Bye.